Hello and welcome to This Week at the Movies. I'm Matt.
And I'm Eric.
And this week, despite the comforting music we have to start the episode, we are diving into the dangerous mythical realm with a horror comedy that was, to me, a little light on the comedy and maybe even lighter on the horror. And that is A24's Death of a Unicorn, which seemed like kind of a fascinating and fantastic idea. I was very excited to see this one. I'm just, no spoiler, not going to make you wait here. I just thought it was okay in the end. The film basically follows a father and son, or father and daughter. Paul Rudd plays the father. Jenna Ortega is his daughter. They kind of have a little bit of an icy relationship since his wife and her mother had passed away. They're going to a secluded mountain retreat run by his boss and family, played by Richard Grant and Téa Leoni, who run a pharmaceutical empire. And their son, played by Will Poulter, is supposed to be kind of the next generation getting ready to take over. But the patriarch of the family, Richard Grant, is dying a slow and horrible death. So Paul Rudd's character, a lawyer who works for the company, is up there to potentially take a position as helping run the corporation as he prepares to die. But along the way, when they're driving through a nature preserve, they hit something. He and his daughter pop out, and it looks suspiciously like a unicorn because, it is a unicorn. And while his daughter is having some kind of connection to it, Paul Rudd tries to put it out of its misery in the most graphic way possible. Then they try to hide the evidence in the back of their car, which doesn't work out. And when the family finds out that they have this unicorn and that it may have some special powers, they obviously decide to put it into their business plan and see what all they can do, which leads to some real dangerous things. Apparently, there's a dark history of unicorns that turns out to be real. So a very convoluted plot. A lot of things they were probably trying to skewer. At times, it's amusing. At times, to me, it felt a little bit dull. I'm giving it a thumbs neutral. I didn't hate it, but I didn't love it either. I wanted to like it, and that has been a struggle for me, I'm going to say, throughout. We're now almost a third of the way through 2025. We're into April, cruising close. I guess we're at the beginning of April, so we're a quarter of the way through the year. A lot of movies coming this month. Maybe that'll change it. But, by this time last year, we had already for over a month had Dune Part 2, which
we had Challengers.
We had Challengers come out. No, Challengers was the end of April. I think Civil War was the first.
Civil War.
In April. Yeah. We had some big movies, some movies I really liked, and if like I ended my 2025 countdown this year, I would probably end up with a movie I only gave 3 stars out of 5, making my top 10, which is jarring. I'm looking forward to the summer. There's some movies coming out this month.
There are definitely.
We're going to hit in a couple weeks that maybe will change some things, but it has been a real slow start to 2025.
Yeah. Any year we got a Mike Flanagan movie coming out for me is like, I'm ready for something good to happen. We got a Mission Impossible movie for like the pop culture end. Yeah, we have quite a few solid potential gems.
But that's it. Coming out potential. Of I thought we've had some potential gems in the first. There were movies I enjoyed. I liked The Monkey when we watched that. I really liked enjoyed The Monkey. Black Bag.
Really liked Companion.
I thought Companion was solid, but that's we're kind of
it
just feels a little thinner than some years. How I was at a thumbs neutral, about 2.5 stars for me for Death of a Unicorn. Even though I had some higher hopes and I thought it had some potential, but I know you were excited to see it as well. Did it work better for you?
I was excited to see it. I thought, like genre, creature feature, horror, comedy, Paul Rudd and Jenna Ortega as the leads. Richard Grant in there, Will Poulter, you know, who I like particularly from roles more like Midsummer and I liked him in like the Chronicles of Narnia movie when he was a kid, and like I think he's a good actor. But his performance here made me think of Adam Warlock from Guardians 3, and I'll get into it. But you know, what an interesting potential for a movie to so offensively squander that it makes me think every movie I've rated negatively for the last 2 years is not that bad. I give it 2 hard thumbs down. Death of the Unicorn.
Oh, you really hated this movie.
Death of the Unicorn should have been shelved for tax purposes. It is the most infuriating, just ugly. Like the conceit of this movie is wouldn't it be funny if everybody was just like ugly to each other and just died? Isn't that hilarious? And oh my gosh, I don't even know where to begin. Okay, my rambling notes on this. Will Poulter, okay, like for one, they're so unsubtle with what they're doing. Like I have so many problems that stem to Will Poulter, but they're not necessarily his fault, except I think his performance a little bit. I think a little bit less of almost every actor, except for maybe Jenna Ortega, for being in this movie and doing what they do. So,
Jenna Ortega has had the strangest arc. She started to hit a popularity high by being in those Scream movies and Wednesday on the small screen. She's done a bunch of movies the last few years, and I think her name still brings you out. But like, remember that odd was it Miller's Girl that we watched last year?
Yeah, I like that. That was like high up on my list from last year.
But confounding.
Oh yeah,
as a film, and this also confound. Like, there's potential, and she seems like she's picking good people. But now I'm starting to think she made a mistake by not doing Scream 7.
And just think how miscast she was in this movie by looking at Miller's Girl and Wednesday. She is recognized as a character who is like. As an actor who's like, oh, you're a girl who stands out of the crowd and goes against the grain and does things that are not necessarily, you know, like good for other people, you know, and she's supposed to be playing the fated, fabled, kind-hearted maiden who's so innocent that the unicorns love her, which is just a sentence that it infuriates me that I'm saying right now. They beat this unicorn to death, which is trying to put it out of its misery, and then they like smash cut to credits, like I guess that was a joke, and like okay, and then they put the thing in the car, and then the thing comes back, and an actress who played Daisy in Spaced, what is her name?
This movie?
Was the main cast. Yes, she was Jessica Hines. She is a fantastic comedic actress playing an absolutely straight-laced security guard for the house who blows the unicorn's head off and gets eaten in the woods, making ugly faces at the camera. And she does nothing remotely comedic the entire movie. And
Anthony Carrigan, we have seen be incredible on Bill Hader's show, HBO show that I'm
Anthony
I'm
Carrigan
blanking on the name. He was Barry. He was like Barry. He was the standout in that show, and they gave him like a couple of funny scenes. But that's the thing. I thought this was going to be more of a comedy because Richard Grant's good at comedy. Will Poulter, if you've ever seen We're the Millers, you know he's a comedy god. So is Paul Rudd's good at comedy. Jenna Ortega can do comedy. Téa Leoni's been good in comedy. I thought this was going to be funny. It is
painfully.
It's not even very good satirically. I know that they're trying to. Is it the Coker family, the ones that?
Oh my gosh!
That we've seen do.
They consume this unicorn in every way except injecting it as a suppository. They drink it, they eat it, they snort it, they smoke it, they vein drip it into Richard Grant's arms. It is the least subtle anything has been in years. It's.
Yeah.
And also, what happens? Will Poulter snorts horn dust, and his eyes do the thing that Jenna Ortega does when she touched the horn. But instead, he just acts like he's on coke. It doesn't give him any new knowledge. It just gives him the energy to read what Jenna Ortega printed out in a 5-minute Google search. How did they already have the lab set up to look for the unicorns if they didn't know?
Company families backward. It's the Sackler family is what they're trying.
Okay,
the ones that made all the pharmaceuticals. That was definitely what they were trying to send up, but they do it in such a sort of ham-fisted way.
So bad. Okay, like so they don't know the unicorns exist, right? The family doesn't know the unicorns exist, that they have this really painful 3-minute scene of everyone standing around trying to be funny, acting like, well, maybe it's a horse-like creature with like some cancerous tumors. Yes, cancerous tumors. Yes, yeah. So someone can go, that's a fucking unicorn. It does look like a unicorn, and we're all supposed to laugh. And I just wanted to like eat my skin. It was so bad. And
well, and that's the thing. Like it's been weird, like,
but they're prepared for
feast
it.
Or famine at the theater. It feels like some weeks you get like maybe one release or almost nothing, and then some weeks you get a torrent. And last week there was like 5 or 6 new releases, because we considered doing Woman in the Yard, and your painful experience with this movie was me sitting there for 84 minutes waiting for my life to end, watching Woman in the Yard, which I just did not care for. But it's like some of these are decent enough ideas. Like you had a good comedic cast. I thought this was actually a clever idea, potentially.
Yes,
to take the
worst movies are wasted potential
it on its head. A24 has made some very creative films, and I didn't hate this as much as you. I just was like, for it really to pay off at the end, you have to be at least minimally invested in the characters and their relationship. Yes. And they did nothing throughout almost 2 hours to make you feel like Paul Rudd and Jenna Ortega had any kind of relationship whatsoever. Like he went from trying desperately to be in a relationship with her to like basically
abandoning her in the woods,
abandoning and ignoring her throughout most of the movie, to then at the end making, like, I guess, a heroic potential sacrifice. And
two scenes. Weird. 2 scenes with Paul Rudd, or I guess the 3 scenes with Paul Rudd. One, the very beginning, Jenna Ortega puts her head on his shoulder, and there's supposed to be this funny scene where he wants to pick up some papers, and his solution is to really quickly pick up the paper so her head hits the armchair.
Well, I don't think he meant for her head to hit the armchair.
Then why not relax, like hold her head and grab the papers?
Because you're supposed to see that he's a goober, I guess.
Yeah, I guess.
Uncoordinated.
I guess. And then scene 2 is he's finally having his big revelation of how he should have treated her better. So he locks her out on the balcony to sacrifice himself. Doesn't end up getting sacrificed. She has to jump at least a full story into some bushes in order to get away, because he locked her on a balcony where she has nowhere to run. And it seems really clear what they were trying to do was set him up to sacrifice himself so that he could be dead, so they could do that cheesy, stupid ass ending where the unicorn magic brings dad back to life. And they realized, oh man, we can't actually kill him in this scene. We've got to figure out a way for him to die. So they just make his character decide to become a murderer. They just write, oh, Will Poulter, who is standing there with a bow and arrow, but he's not doing anything threatening. He doesn't know that Will Poulter has snorted unicorn horn. He doesn't know that Will Poulter has done anything threatening other than he sees that his daughter is sitting next to the unicorns that are tied up next to her. And he just walks up with a horn and just stabs him right in the gut. And which Will Poulter responds by stabbing him with an arrow. And it's so obvious that it's just so that he can bleed out, so that they can have that ending that they wrote, that it's incredibly painful and annoying. Nothing in this feels actually written or cared about. Like, there's a 5-minute Google search coming up with the idea of some tapestries, and everyone keeps saying, what do the tapestries say? And she keeps saying, well, bad things are going to happen. And they keep saying, what bad things are going to happen? And she keeps not being able to tell them. And she's like, touch the unicorn horn. I saw something. What did you see? I saw something about mom. What did you see? I saw something about a river. Nothing was actually written. And then the very ending of the movie, which I'll spoil just in case someone is tempted to go watch this thing, the characters might be dead because the unicorns come out while they're being taken away by the police. And for some reason, they're happy that the police car is about to be flipped over on the edge of a mountain cliff. What is that ending supposed to be? What are we supposed to assume happened next? Like, they send police out when no one believes that unicorns exist, and they find Paul Rudd and her, and the unicorns help them escape and go live in the woods forever? Or they realize that their police have gone missing, so they send military and more police out to hunt down Paul Rudd and her until the world finds out unicorns exist? What was this? It's really rare that I get so mad about a movie that it's like I need to talk about how bad it was. Like, usually if it's like a movie like The Crow, I have my rant on why The Crow is bad because there's potential, because there's an original movie and a graphic novel with a source that the movie then squanders. And so that's the thing that pisses me off, when a movie has potential that is squandered. And this is like the worst example I've seen of that in like years. So I'm done. I got it. I think I got most of it out. It's just, whoa, boy.
It was not your cup of tea. You know, what can we say? What can we say? Well, we'll transition from that to a show we have been following, which has had 3 new episodes. You know, I think you can tell maybe Death of the Unicorn would not be something that either of us would recommend you having to run out and see. Who knew of the two of us, I was going to be the one that liked it better, because I didn't really like it. I almost nothing it, which is probably better than you hating it. But something both of us have enjoyed, and that is Daredevil Born Again. We got a special double episode drop 2 weeks ago, and then a 7th episode this week, 2 weeks from the end of the first season. It made more sense why they did the double episode drop after you watched them. 5th episode, a little bit of a bottle episode with a bank heist.
Yep.
That is a fun tie-in to the world of Miss Marvel, because her father there, the assistant manager at the bank, gets a lot of interactions with Charlie Cox's Matt Murdock. Kind of a little bit fun. Then episode 6 swings back toward what got introduced at the end of episode 4, which is the serial killer Muse, who strikes, and that is what kind of fully pushes Matt to re-embrace the Daredevil persona. And then we saw, I guess, the conclusion of that arc in episode 7. I have to admit, I was a little surprised that it was such a short run into that, and now it's over. I guess there are some rumors he's back in season 2, which seems weird to me since he's dead. Since it's fairly indicated that he's dead, but I guess in the comics he has been an unkillable character. I guess we'll see how that all plays out. But I thought the arc was pretty good. I really enjoyed 5 for what it was, being a bottle episode. It's a little bit lighter, a little bit more fun. I get some of the complaints that it feels like it pulled you out of the main story and had a slightly different tone, which you're not wrong, but some of those things can be fun. And it turns out I think, so this is a show that went through quite a path in development, changed showrunners, changed a little bit of focus. I know that they worked on the pilot quite a bit and did some reshoots and added some of the things that really made that hum. But it's probably that episode 5 was part of a different trajectory for the show when you're watching the tone. But I know why they can't cut it out, because if you're watching 6 and 7, they make copious references to him being trapped in a bank.
Yeah.
So you couldn't have omitted it. I thought it was fun for what it was. I do think it was probably smart to do a double episode drop there, because if that would have been a single episode release, people probably would have been looking
Yeah.
at that like, what is going on? But I enjoyed all three of them. I'm still enjoying the arc of the season here. I think it's been very solid. I'm glad to have Daredevil back. I know you've been enjoying it up to, this 3 episodes. How did these hit you?
I really enjoyed episode 5, and I think despite the fact that it is clearly like Foggy and Karen Page were originally not in the show, not until after the writer's strike. So we know how much they reshot because everything involving, like, maybe it was supposed to be that Foggy died in the original drafts without the actor coming back. But there's some heavy like tonal changes and things that they've done with this. And this though, I think stayed true to the uber violence that's been going throughout the show. And I think it helped if you take episode 5 out, what you have is episode 3, where Hector Ayala at the very end is shot, and episode 4, where Matt goes to the Punisher and has talked about how he is itching to get out and be Daredevil again. And then instantly in episode 6, he would be like, the Hector Ayala's daughter went missing. I'm going to go be Daredevil, which is probably a good enough pushing point for him to go and be Daredevil again, like on its own. But I think what you get to see here is Matt being pushed a little bit more, in the sense that he knows that there's corruption in the city, and he knows that corruption is operating inside the law, outside of the law. Like this bank robbery was a designed sort of either distraction or something that is probably going to be called back to later. Like, the guys were working for someone and their job was to rob the bank while somebody else had some other job somewhere else. And Matt having to ride that line of being Matt Murdock, but being Daredevil, dancing in between the two of them, it's kind of like what his whole character is about. And this kind of embodied that struggle for him. And it got to showcase the use of his powers in a way that they didn't get to a lot in the Netflix show, like being a safe cracker. And, it's just a lot of fun. And then a lot of heaviness in episode 6. But I really, really want to talk about episode 7, because there are some cracks that are starting to show for me, despite the fact that overall, by and large, I'm still 100% in on this show, and I adore what they're doing. I do think Muse's situation was really quick, but I think it works in the sense that in overarching comic runs, there are usually 2 or 3 pages. Like in Daredevil season 2, the first 4 episodes are the Punisher. Then the next 4 episodes are Elektra and like the Hand. And then the last 4 or 5 episodes are the trial of the Punisher and, fighting the Hand and the ninjas and the Punisher coming out. And like, it's the little arcs. And this was a little arc, and I can understand that. Couple of things irk me, but I feel like they're fine. Heather shot Muse. She's not someone who is suppressed or will keep, has to keep quiet. I can see why she would maybe not want to take the blame for killing Muse, but usually whatever character Daredevil says I love you to does end up dying in some horrible, tragic way, like decades of that happening, like constantly. But so she killed Muse, and the police are taking credit for it. And
but we leave with her still in intensive care in the hospital.
100%.
So maybe news people haven't gotten to her. It seems like what the indication is that press conference is taking place at about the same time that she's coming out of the coma. So.
Yep, absolutely. It could be completely explained in everything. And my other issue could be completely explained later too. In fact, I think I've figured out what the rationale is, which is the very absolute second The second that Kingpin hears the word Daredevil in his ear, he has no reason to not publicly announce, "Hey everyone, Matt Murdock is Daredevil." Just instantly squash it. And I think what they're going for is they had their established episode 1 kind of showdown talk where it's like, if either one of us steps out of line, then the other one is going to be there. But I think what Kingpin may have meant is basically, don't mess with my business and I won't mess with your business. So it is possible.
I felt like he was so appalled and frustrated about the serial killer that when they talked about Matt being able to, Daredevil having found and opened up the layer, that was something they hadn't been able to find.
Yeah.
And I felt like that was more where he said, nah.
Yeah.
Wait a sec, because, as long as he can take the public glory for it,
yeah,
I felt like he was shifting towards seeing Matt as something he could use, as long as they're not, like you said, at odds.
Yeah, and that's the thing. That's where I think the bank comes back into play, because right now Muse is dead, and Matt has every reason to put his cowl away and stay Matt Murdock. And that's the thing. We're at episode 8 now. Like, we finished episode 7. We're at episode 8 now. And we're teasing at the idea that Kingpin has an overarching plan, but we're nowhere near a situation where Daredevil is like on Kingpin's trail trying to figure out what he's doing. We are still very firmly in the territory of Matt wants to be Daredevil. Matt can't stop from being Daredevil, but he has people he needs to protect, and his identity is at risk of being outed. So he's still caught up in the will he, won't he of being Daredevil, while Kingpin is just gradually trying to keep his crime life shut down so that he can do his mayor life things. And it's like, will that or won't that work out? Will he and Vanessa be together? And these threads, we all know they're leading somewhere. And I just think we're not getting there in a way that I think it's going to be like satisfying. I mean, I trust people like Ricky who've said they've seen the show and it all works out great. But like, I don't know. It's really far along for us to be this open all over the map for where the show could be going.
Yeah, and I'll be curious to see how the supposedly we're getting Frank Castle back in episode 8.
Which is good, because so far they've completely dropped that the person who killed Hector Ayala was dressed as the Punisher.
Well, and that there's a group of cops that all have that Punisher tattoo that are dirty. They're gonna have to come to a head, and that's probably where Matt will start crossing paths with Wilson Fisk, because his kind of tapped chosen face for that new police unit we know is the most corrupt of them all.
Yeah.
And is probably the one that did kill
the guy. Which I gotta say, things that I'm loving in this show are some of the cartoony antics of Daredevil, like him immediately knocking that police officer out, or him dropping into frame after like waiting in the rafters in the tunnels under the city for everyone to leave, or the absolute best way where the lady like looks at Muse and is like, "What kind of coward has to hide behind a mask?" And then Daredevil comes smashing in the window.
Well, I mean, we've got to be coming to a head with where he's going to have to tell both his partners, his business partner and his romantic partner, who he really is, because that's his back and forth with Clark Johnson's detective character last week really got the eyes up and
my wife and I were having a conversation about Daredevil and Batman, because there are so many interesting little threads between the two characters. And one of the things we were talking about is how both of them are like serial monogamists, but Batman he has romances, but they're not necessarily in love. Daredevil's tendency is to fall so hard for everyone he's in a relationship with that he'd be willing to marry them. But for some reason, Batman is always on the edge of telling his loved one that he is Batman, and Daredevil will not.
He's not just on the edge. Every Batman movie we've ever had, it's like the least well-kept secret. I mean, let's be honest.
Yeah,
even Christopher Nolan's.
I mean, and we've seen they've kept true to this through the Netflix show that Daredevil is willing to destroy relationships for keeping that secret. You know, like
I guess, but all the ladies he was with in the show, I mean, Karen knew who he was.
Karen knew, but he didn't tell her until after she and he had both almost died multiple times. You know, Foggy had to keep the secret for Daredevil for a long time. And Foggy only found out because of how horribly he was, you know, almost killed. And it's the people who tend to find out about Daredevil tend to find out because he is in a desperate place where he has no other choice but to involve them. Like Claire, Night Nurse, like from season 1. Rosario Dawson?
Yeah, Rosario Dawson.
Yeah, she met the Man in the Mask and she had to nurse him back to life. So she found out what he was, and there you go. That's funny. That is one romance that didn't turn into him being like, "Oh, I love you more than anything, and I want to be with you forever." You know, it took Foggy's death to rip him and Karen apart. But you know, you've seen how much he's willing to destroy his life for Elektra. It's everything with Heather is like kind of doomed. And with that character, having someone like Muse tell her, "Your work is responsible for me," and then her turning around and ending him, she's damaged. She is in a really bad way. And if Matt is going to continue to be guarded about his persona and is going to not be able to be there for her because he's trying to be Daredevil, only destructive things are going to happen. And I'm kind of here for it because that is so kind of, again, true. This show is so true to what the nature of the character in the comics is. Even across multiple decades, we're talking about like the 2010s for Kingpin being mayor, the mid 2000s for Matt Murdock being the type of lawyer and position and personality that he is, and the 1980s for all of the Frank Miller inspirations of this, all kind of blended into this one thing. Born Again is the name of the most infamous comic run from Frank Miller. It just, I'm really excited to see where it goes. I hope we get somewhere that's like engaging and kind of keeps you wanting to know what's going to happen next.
Well, by the time we come back together, we will have seen the finale, so we'll be able to touch back and see.
Is there only 9 episodes?
There's only 9 this season. April 15th will be the finale.
Okay.
So, you know, getting closer. Tax day and the Daredevil finale.
Yeah.
Before we get to ending recommendations, I wanted to bring up, you know, we lost somebody that both you and I have enjoyed their work this week, and that is Val Kilmer. Probably one of his most iconic roles. I've always enjoyed him as Doc Holliday in Tombstone, one of the most quotable. But I know you and I share an affinity for a movie that I know for me, it's probably my favorite of the ones that he's done. It's probably your favorite too, and that is Shane Black's Kiss Kiss Bang Bang, which actually is turning 20 years old this year. A nice 2005. A great team up between him and Robert Downey Jr. I love them so much together in that movie. I know you have a real affinity for that movie too. That's actually going to be one of my 2005 rewind movies here in a couple of weeks. But what have you always appreciated about Val Kilmer in that film?
You know, it's funny because it is this movie is one of the first Blu-rays I ever bought back in like 2009, and yeah, he gets to play just like such a fascinating character, like irreverently. Like you would, most times when people are gonna like not be a homosexual person playing a homosexual character, you would make so many different choices, but he plays this character, Perry, so straight and so kind of honest to himself without trying to play up that he's homosexual, where everything is just so matter of fact, and he's so well written. And I love the way he's so patronizing to Robert Downey Jr.'s character. And he's just like his, I'm sorry for the language, but what fuckhead, badly's an adverb. Who taught you grammar? Like, and then he shoots with the gun. It's like, what did you do? Oh, there was like an 8% chance. 8? Who taught you math? Like,
or look up the definition of idiot in the dictionary. It's like, I know, I find a picture of me. No, you find the definition of an idiot, which you fucking are.
Yeah, he has some absolute gold lines. Just like Colin Farrell wants too much money. Like, what? Like I've never seen Tombstone.
That's one where he really elevates the role of the material, and he and Kurt Russell are so good together. I thought, he was always great back and forth with people. I think it was his back and forth with Robert Downey Jr. that I love in that. He may have had the scene of Top Gun Maverick when he returns in that one scene, which I think ends up being his final screen credit, he and Tom Cruise. And you can see how much they love and mutual respect two actors actually have. That really comes through in that scene. He's had some just fantastic movies. A lot of people point, so Batman, my favorite superhero of all time. I've made no bones about that. I love Val Kilmer. He's done some great movies. I loved him in Willow.
Do not shade Batman Forever. Not today.
Batman Forever is the worst Batman movie ever made, and he is the worst Batman we've had on screen. And I love Val Kilmer. That movie is a disgrace.
Disagree. Ugh. So since we're being nice to Val Kilmer today, I will say,
I'm still being nice. I love Val Kilmer.
Yeah.
It was
I know.
I think there was a movie he wanted to make that wasn't the same movie that Joel Schumacher and Jim Carrey were trying to make. That none of them were on the same page with whatever the hell Tommy Lee Jones was doing.
Yeah, no, I 100% understand why that movie is silly and awful, and it's just I like all of its weirdness and badness. That movie and Batman. I
I still own it. I've still purchased it 3 different formats. So
yeah, like it's weird. What I will say is I feel like Val Kilmer would be a very great Batman in a movie where the Batman character is written more effectively. And there is a fan edit of Batman Forever that reincorporates some of the lost footage and deleted scenes that kind of completes this really interesting arc where that movie has a really unique take on Batman's feeling of responsibility for his parents' death, in the sense that his father's journal, this red book that he's been going for, he notes that we're going to the theater tonight because Bruce won't quit complaining about being in the house.
That honestly, that doesn't make me like it anymore. That would make me like it less.
Would it?
Yes. But you know what? A bad Batman movie is still like bad pizza. You're still having pizza. The thing is, I think
great.
I think it's a little unfair to Val Kilmer in that movie because everyone and everything around him is so over the top. Whatever Jim Carrey and Tommy Lee Jones are doing, I don't even want to call acting. Even Nicole Kidman, like the weirdest seduction arcs that have ever happened in the history of
that's
time.
great.
The way they cartoonly, over the top, and flamboyantly made Gotham. Sometimes you look at Val Kilmer as Batman, and he looks like he's looking around saying, "Where am I?"
Yeah.
And I have that same feeling. I just don't think they gave
When
him
he's in the
any.
crowd at the top.
I don't think they gave him any space. And I'm not saying Batman and Robin is a good movie, but it almost feels more grounded compared to the first swing, which look, I know I'm not saying grounded in the same way Batman Begins is grounded. I'm just saying it felt less offensive than everything
Sure.
around it.
One thing that Batman and Robin has that almost no other movie up until the Batman in 2022 and the Dark Knight Rises has is Alfred had been the same actor for 4 movies, and they had such sincerity in the personal relationship between Bruce and Alfred, how Alfred had been so much of a parent figure to Bruce, and now this role had exchanged where Bruce was having to care for Alfred, and that's something they've never really done with the character. And it's just this little 10% thread of the movie that actually has a little bit of emotion to it, and that's not.
And if
in
you
Batman
can add
Forever.
Arnold Schwarzenegger and Alicia Silverstone and still feel more grounded, that tells you how much of a misfire.
I'm
not saying either of them are good, which is Joel Schumacher made my personal favorite movie of all time.
The Lost Boys.
Anyway, he directed my personal favorite movie of all time, but I don't know what he was doing with those Batman movies.
Wait, what is your favorite movie of all time? What was the
Time to Kill?
Oh yes. Oh yes. Oh yeah.
Yeah, Joel Schumacher did a couple of adaptations of John Grisham movies that are incredible. It might have been The Client was the other one, or Pelican. Yeah. I don't think it was Pelican Brief. I know he did a couple of them there but he went literally. He made A Time to Kill in between those Batman movies, and because Batman Forever came out in 95, A Time to Kill came out in 96, and Batman and Robin came out in 97. Like, I don't know.
Well, no wonder he was putting so much time and effort into A Time to Kill, while money was just being thrown at the 2 Batman movies. No wonder they turned out how they did.
Well, it has to be one of the oddest cinematic runs in history because, I mean, I don't know.
Wow.
Poor Joel Schumacher. He's not with us anymore, but it was definitely.
Or Val Kilmer, man. Yeah.
Well, obviously that's how we got into talking about. Yeah, so he made The Client in 94. I was right. It was The Client. He made Falling Down in 93, The Client in 94, then did Batman Forever in 95, went back to A Time to Kill in 96, Batman and Robin in 97, took a year off and returned with Nicolas Cage's 8mm.
What kind of
the man's
whiplash?
filmography is like some stunning all-time dramatic classics mixed with what were you thinking,
wackiest,
bro?
Madcappiest.
What were you thinking?
Wow.
I mean, you can't say he doesn't have directorial range.
Yeah.
But then, he made Colin Farrell's Phone Booth. He made that Bad Company movie. And then he made the Phantom of the Opera remake in 2004.
Oh my gosh.
Carrey's The Number 23, which...
Maybe he just wanted to do everything.
And his last directorial credit was a few episodes of House of Cards. But you're right. He did do The Lost Boys. I forgot about The Lost Boys, Flatliners, Dying Young, then Falling Down. He made St. Elmo's Fire. So he has some iconic classics, and then
Batman and Robin and Forever. No, yeah, which honestly are kind of classics in they're I would say nostalgia classics in their own right.
Yeah. Let's be careful how we use the word classic.
Yeah.
Well, before we get out of here, a couple things I wanted to shout out, things you can check out.
And you have to ask me a question.
Oh, that's right. Look at you. Remembering the most important game. My wife would be disappointed that I forgot. I'm going to pull one randomly out of the middle. Let's see. A professional driver uses a cougar to make a comeback.
Oh, well, that's Talladega Nights.
I never would have gotten it, but that is 100%.
That's just a description of a scene from the movie. There's a cougar in the back of the car.
You know, I didn't really care for Talladega Nights, so I don't have a lot of that memorized. That is not a Will Ferrell movie I deeply enjoyed. But you're on fire with this. You have not missed one.
That's probably why
I'm
I
have to
remember
look
to do
for.
because I'm enjoying.
I'm gonna have to look for a harder one. A couple of things I wanted to shout out. Netflix does a lot of movies. Some of them are hit or miss. They had one that came out last weekend called The Life List, which, you know, Ricky says I have an affinity for what he charitably calls Hallmark cinema. And maybe that is true. And maybe you would classify this as that. I've seen a lot of people with middling to low scores on it. I gave it 3.5 stars.
Yeah, I was going to say, you've given it the highest rating of anyone I know.
For me, Sophia Carson, Connie Britton, I liked the idea. It got to me. I really enjoyed the heck out of it. And probably in the same class is a movie that you can find in theaters, Sony Picture Classics, The Penguin Lessons. This one based on a true story of a teacher who goes down to teach English at a school in Argentina in the 70s when they're in the middle of kind of political strife, ends up finding a penguin in an oil spill on a beach in Uruguay. Cleans it up to impress a woman, doesn't get a date with the woman, but ends up with the penguin that he takes back, and it ends up, kind of changing his life. I thought it was a sweet story. Again, sometimes I'm a soft touch. I'm looking for something with a little bit of an emotional connection, and both those had a little bit of an emotional connection for me. So one streaming on Netflix, and one you can pick up in theaters, or you can go out and watch Minecraft.
And just watch Kiss Kiss Bang Bang. If there's anyone out there who hasn't seen it, just watch Kiss Kiss Bang Bang.
I did sadly look. It's not streaming for free anywhere, but you can rent it on Prime Video. I was hoping it'd be streaming for free because that's the one I always think of, like when I'm thinking of Val Kilmer movies. And I actually think it's one of Robert Downey Jr.'s best performances too.
Yeah.
And Shane Black, a guy who I've loved going back to Lethal Weapon. So be sure to check all of that out. Eric and I will be off next week, but we will return, and we have some sinning to do, or at least Michael B. Jordan does. We will be back looking
right before Easter.
I think they did time that to be Easter. It comes out on Good Friday. Sinners, which is, I don't think it's giving anything away to say it's a vampire film, because they have certainly given that away in all of the marketing. But Michael B. Jordan, Haley Steinfeld, directed by Ryan Coogler. So they have kind of a long history together. We'll probably talk about some of their other movies they've made together, really tiny films like Black Panther.
Yeah.
But hopefully, and Creed.
He's been in every one that Ryan Coogler's made, right?
No.
Which one is he not in? He's in Fruitvale Station. He's in Creed. He's in Black Panther 1 and 2.
Ryan Coogler didn't make Creed 2.
No, he didn't make Creed 2. He's in Black Panther 1 and 2. Michael B. Jordan is.
Sorry. Yeah, those are the 4 that they have done together. Let me look. You've thrown me off now. Oh, maybe that is all Ryan Coogler's directed.
At least features.
Yeah, those are the only features he's directed. I kept thinking he did Judas and the Black Messiah, but he was just the producer on that. So, should be good. Kind of excited to see what they do. This will be their 5th feature film together. So, this is the one I probably have the highest hopes for in April, which means the next time we get together is either going to be really great or as deflating as the Unicorn.
That's true. There's a lot of potential here.
There's a lot of potential. So we'll take a look at that. We won't be together next week, but you can look out on Friday. I will do a short what's playing video looking at big slate of releases next weekend, including Drop, Warfare, The Amateur, which I'm seeing
Oh, I'm
tonight.
so thankful the
And
Drop is finally going to be out, so I don't have
Sacramento.
to watch that trailer anymore.
Well, until next time, Eric will be trying to forget he ever saw the Drop trailer, and we will see you at the movies.
Wait, the